Hello, everybody. I might have lied to you all yesterday. We do not have Alex Rickleen on the program today, but you should follow Alex's socials at RIKLEEN, even though he's not on the program. Yes, we do promos for folks that aren't here. That's a thing on Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball because, and you'll see this at some point, I don't know when the announcement is coming, Alex has a huge announcement coming. That's all I can say. It's a game changer. Then you'll understand why scheduling has been a little bit complicated. First time it was me. It's almost always me. But we'll get him on the program soon. This I promised you guys. Instead, today we're going to be talking about, yes, that's a picture of Jason Tatum lying on the ground. We're going to be talking about injuries, and not just those suffered in the playoffs, but basically those that we already know are going to have an impact on next season, and a large one at that. First things first, follow on social at Dan Besbris, DanBesbris. Old Man Squad is the Twitter handle for our network feed. It's also my Blue Sky handle that sort of doubles as both. I haven't bothered to split them up on Blue Sky. I may or may not ever bother doing that. But like, rate, and subscribe. You guys are getting all sorts of amazing stuff here at Old Man Squad. Yesterday, Noah Rubin's Young Man Squad dropped a show that was now a NBA draft lottery, or the NBA draft mock, after the lottery, which, of course, the Mavs got the number one pick. That's hilarious. But we're not going to talk about on this. Well, it may come up tangentially, but you guys know I'm not big time into the rookies and draft and all that kind of stuff. And I don't want to. So here's the thing, and we're going to get into today's topic in just a second. I want to be genuine with you guys. You all know I don't pay attention to college basketball. It feels like if I started suddenly covering the draft right now, it would be pandering. I just don't know what I'm talking about. So I'm not going to do a show where I'm just doing it because it's more buzzy. Instead, we're going to do a show that I probably could have done a week ago, but I'm glad I waited because it got even more ridiculous. And that, again, is injuries suffered lately that are going to have a big impact going into next year. And obviously, Jason Tatum is the big one. Tatum blowing out his Achilles in Boston's last game. Their loss, that was 2 days ago now, to the Knicks. Knicks are on the verge at this point of taking down the Celtics and facing the Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals. Who the hell had neither the Celtics nor the Cavaliers making the Eastern Conference Finals? But they still got to get it done. Boston's still the favorite at home, even without Jason Tatum. Minnesota, big-time favorite at home at their place. 10.5 points, actually, over the Stephless Golden State Warriors. And I guess that's man, I didn't want to do the ad read so early in the show, but screw it, we'll do it. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all things sports betting. With baseball in full swing, NBA playoffs are rolling, as we just told you about the spreads on the game tonight, NHL playoffs, and more. BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, scores, and even live, this is super fun, in-game betting while the games are happening. So you could sit and you could watch this Boston game today, and you could see if they're going to have an emotional high with the Jason Tatum injury, and you could bet into him at that point if you want. You know, see how the beginning of the game looks, how the two teams seem emotionally. Don't want to wait for the ball games? No worries. You can head to the BetOnline casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker, a live casino, slot games, all sorts of different types of blackjack. They've got it at BetOnline. The game starts here. We were talking spreads. It seemed like it was the right time to do it. So let me pivot over for a minute to a Jason Tatum player page, so you're not just stuck looking at a picture of him being injured on the floor. Obviously, the thing about Tatum for so many seasons now is that he's been a pillar of health. Yeah, the COVID year was weird for pretty much everybody, but even in the COVID seasons, he only missed 6 games and 8 games, which at the time felt like a lot because the 2 years before that, he missed 2 and then 3, and the years since then, he missed 6, 8, 8, and then 10. Oh my God! This year, off the, of course, very deep run, and you figured that there'd be more days off for the Celtics this season. He's also been a pillar of consistency. He has shot over the last basically decade now. We'll do the last 8 years because that's what shows up on the Yahoo player page. 47.5% from the field, and 45, 45, 46, 45, 46.5, 47, and 45. You ready for free throws? It's pretty similar. 83, 86, 81, 87, 85, 85, 83, and this year, for some reason, 81. That's a slightly down year. Rebounds. Once he got up to full tilt, 6, 7, 7.5, 8, 8.5, 8, 8.5. Assists were an all-time high this year. That's really the only thing that's changed for Jayson Tatum. You guys get the idea. Obviously, three-pointers have been on the rise for him as he's taken more and more three-pointers. And that's, take the good with the bad a little bit on that one. It did negatively impact his field goal percent, but his two-pointers have been a higher efficiency spot. But more than anything, this Jayson Tatum consistency stuff, fuzz on the brim of my hat, that's not a metaphor. There was actually fuzz on the brim of my hat. This Jayson Tatum consistency stuff is now up in flames. He's not going to be ready for the beginning of next year. He may not be ready for any part of next year. Achilles injuries are usually about a calendar year of recovery, at least until a guy is actually moving like himself again. So maybe you get Tatum at the very, very, very bitter tail end of the regular season, but he is not a guy that you can draft in redraft leagues. He is, as all the guys are that we're going to talk about on today's show, in keeper leagues. If you can get him in like the, 4th, 5th round or something like that and sit on him for a season, great. If he falls that far, terrific. You squat on him, the following year, however your keeper league rules go. The keeper league that I'm in, you have to sacrifice 2 rounds each year you keep a guy. So if you drafted him in the 4th, he'd be a 2nd round keeper the following year. But obviously, if you can get Tatum at a 2nd round or a 3rd round keeper price, you do it. You probably have to tank this coming season. And maybe you could do it with a number of guys. You might be able to do it with everybody we talk about on today's show. Just a total tank season and set yourself up for a whirlwind. I don't know. I have trouble just throwing in the towel for a year. That it hurts my heart, hurts my soul. But for redraft leagues, he's a no. Of course, there is the other side to all of this stuff, and that might be the bigger story on today's show, which is what does it mean for the other guys on the teams where these players are missing? By the way, the players we're going to talk about on today's show are Jayson Tatum, Damian Lillard, DeJounte Murray, all Achilles injuries. Whoops, I accidentally closed the DeJounte Murray window. We'll get that back. You guys couldn't see it anyway, but I could. And Kyrie Irving, who's ACL instead of Achilles. There are other guys that might miss the beginning of next year, but we don't know for sure. So we're just going with the ones that are definitely missing the beginning. The other players on the Boston Celtics this year, and this will serve almost as a little bit of a team review. Derek White. Tatum was the top-ranked player on the Celtics at number 9. No, he's done more. He's raised his profile over the playoffs. During the regular season, he was like number 14-ish, but he was durable. So end of the first round by totals. Derek White was a late 20s per game, early 30s per game guy who was also actually pretty durable this year. Kristaps Porzingis was in the 40s and 50s this year. As of course the gardeners who hadn't been around in a apartment alleyway. There aren't even any plants out there. Get out of here. This day's going to piss me off. Porzingis is always going to miss a bunch of time. He came back earlier than expected from his injury to start the year, but then he missed, like another 20 games even after he came back, and that's always going to be a thing with Porzingis. Peyton Pritchard was actually the 4th highest ranked Celtic this regular season, was also extremely durable. Then Jaylen Brown, who hung out near the edge of the top 100. Drew Holiday, who was a little bit outside the top 100. Al Horford, who had a top 75 run before Porzingis came back and then was well back of that once Porzingis was around. And you could plug and play Horford the rest of the time. I don't know exactly who's going to be where for the Boston Celtics next year. We can look at Boston Celtics contracts and assume that most guys that are under contract next year are still going to be there. Brown has a bunch left on his. Tatum, obviously. Drew Holiday has another couple years on his. Porzingis has 1 more. Derek White has 3 more. Horford's a free agent, but it'd be kind of surprising if he went somewhere besides where he's been very comfortable. Peyton Pritchard has a few more seasons on his as well. So the only question mark there is Al Horford. But it's actually a little bit of an important question mark. You wouldn't think so, But if you remember this past year, basically anytime anyone other than a straight point guard was out, and sometimes even when the point guard was out, Al Horford was the guy who got into the starting lineup, and they ran a too big starting five with Porzingis at the 5 and Horford at the 4, or flip-flop, or didn't really matter, positionless basketball and all that stuff. So let's say Horford is back. Let's say he signs a new deal with the Celtics. I don't know how much money they could offer him. They're way over the salary cap, but he was already there, so I'm pretty sure they can bring him back for, some amount of money. Horford probably starts with White, Porzingis, Jrue Holiday, and Jaylen Brown. That's probably the starting 5 for the Boston Celtics next year without Jason Tatum. If that's the case, Al Horford probably deserves to be drafted in the 115 to 130 range, because you're liable to get a full season of top 100 Big Al. He's not going to be top 75. He needs to be the center to do that. But you're also going to get a bunch of games where Tatum is out and Porzingis is out, resting, hurt, whatever. Horford's going to rest too, by the way. So if you're drafting him in a head-to-head league, understand that he's going to play 65 games next year and just sort of come to terms with that. Roto, who cares if he's playing 65 games? If you can spend a 10th round pick on a guy who's going to probably roll top 100 baseline with top 60 upside when the center's out, you definitely do it. So keep an eye on where Big Al lands. If he is not back with the Celtics, Sam Hauser probably starts, but he's just a 3-point streamer, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. Forget the usage side of the equation for a minute for this first part of our discussion, because Horford, he doesn't need the ball in his hands to pretty much do anything. The usage side of the equation is going to rocket guys like Jaylen Brown probably too early in drafts again. He's going to shoot a lot, and he's going to overwhelm some of the bad Jaylen Brown stuff with better Jaylen Brown stuff, because he took 18 shots roughly a game this year. He was in the 20s in scoring. He'll get a few rebounds, some assists, whatever. All that stuff is going to go up. The question is, does it go up enough to justify the fact that he's probably going to get drafted in the 4th round this coming year? Maybe even as early as the 3rd. My thought on that is probably not. I would rather overspend on the other Celtics that people typically underdraft. So Derek White, who went in the 4th round, and he was more of a 2nd and 3rd round guy all season long. Frankly, you could even look at Jrue Holiday, who got off to a terrible start this year, but kind of pulled it together by midway through. He finished at number 113, which admittedly, not good. You don't want to spend a pick on a guy who's going to finish at 113. But if he was number 94 the second half of the season, his field goal percent was just a little bit better. That was pretty much the only thing that changed. And 9 shots second half of last year. What was Jrue for the entire season? 9 shots. So that everything stayed exactly the same. He just started to shoot the ball a little bit better. He will have no choice but to take 1 extra shot per game. Like, it might be better than that, but 10 feels like the bare minimum for Jrue Holiday in shot attempts next year. Peyton Pritchard's going to do more as well. I don't have any idea where he's going to get drafted. But these are the guys you want to be looking at. Don't spend on the guy that everybody's going to be overspending on anyway. Go see if you can get Derek White at the end of the 3rd round, beginning of the 4th. See if you can get Peyton Pritchard in the 90s. See if you can get Jrue Holiday after 100. See if you can get Al Horford after 115. And I can already say that even now because we have a pretty good idea of what the Celtics are going to look like. Next player on our list. Who the hell's the next player on our list? Let's go to Damian Lillard. Did I pick the right? Yeah, I hit the right tab. Damian Lillard, also a blown Achilles, but this one is a little bit more problematic because the Bucks' salary situation, contract situation, Giannis situation is all much more in a state of flux. The Bucks have a bunch of money coming off the books next year. Brook Lopez is not signed for next year. Gary Trent Jr. is not signed for next year. I'm just thinking about, maybe it's not as much money as it is guys who did stuff. And that's a lot. Bobby Portis has a player option for next year, as does Pat Connaughton and Kevin Porter Jr. So we kind of have to look at the Bucks and we have to do it a little bit quicker. I can't tell you who you should be drafting on Milwaukee because I don't know who's going to be there. If Giannis really does ask out, and that's the rumor kicking around over the last 2 days, is that Giannis is exploring the idea. That doesn't mean that he's going to get traded. He's a superstar. Like, it doesn't matter if his contract is expiring or not. Someone's going to have to give up all the contracts in the universe and all the picks in the universe if they want to get him. And teams will definitely do it because he's freaking Giannis and he's probably a top 3 player in the entire NBA. But he also might just end up in Milwaukee. So it's hard to say, oh, here's the guy you should take. My thought is, let's say Brook Lopez comes back, but he's 37 now and he's not going to make $23 million. And there are a lot of teams that would love a gigantic stretch 4 or a stretch 5. Bobby Portis, does he think he can make more than $13.5 million on the free agent market? I don't know. Maybe. But like, if Brook Lopez isn't back, Bobby Portis becomes a very interesting player, but they're also going to bring in other guys. As it stands right now, the guys that were replacing Damian Lillard when he was dealing with a blood clot at the end of the year were Gary Trent Jr., Kevin Porter Jr., and Ryan Rollins, who, by the way, is not even on a contract for next year either. The only guy of that group that is Kevin Porter Jr., and that's only if he exercises his player option. So there's really no obvious grab right now. You kind of have to wait. We'll see how free agency goes. We'll see if the Bucks pick up a starting caliber point guard or if it's going to be Kevin Porter Jr., if they bring back Gary Trent, who's probably going to try to make more than $2 million next season. He's not going to come back. He's not going to just sign for $2 million for the hell of it. He's going to go try to get, 5 to 10. And if he has to settle for 2, he'll do it. So you just don't know right now. But obviously, Damian Lillard being out leaves a whole lot on the table. Dan, would you ever explore the idea of drafting Kyle Kuzma in a 9-category league? Great question, friends. No, I would not. I can't stand Kyle Kuzma's fantasy game. The only way I would look at it is if the Bucks suddenly turned into the Kyle Kuzma-led Wizards, which is a very distinct possibility because the Bucks already made one trade with Washington. What if, the Nets trade for Giannis and give up a couple of young guys and a crap ton of picks, and all of a sudden Kyle Kuzma is the highest usage guy left? All right, then you might get him near top 100 in straight 9-cat, and better than that if you're punting one of his bad categories, which he has a few of. But otherwise, we're going to probably leave that one alone. So we move through the Damian Lillard one a little bit quicker. Let's go to DeJounte Murray next on our board. And he's another one where we can't make overwhelming calls on what to do with the rest of the Pelicans. DeJounte has a better chance of playing at some point next year because at least he suffered his injury before the playoffs started. Same with Kyrie Irving, who we'll get to in just a minute here. But DeJounte, man, I still wouldn't draft him in basically any format because, maybe he's back by January, but not going to be himself until February or March. I mean, yeah, you can't sit on that guy for 4 months. That's crazy. You can't sit on anybody in fantasy for 4 months. You need a roster slot. You need your IL slot. You need that spot open. So, no, same story with DeJounte. You're really only looking at him if you're in a keeper format where you can get him at a discount. Also, by the way, Trey Murphy went down with a torn labrum. I'm going to assume he's back for the start of next year, but that's another one we actually don't know about either. Herb Jones also had a labrum tear. Will he be back to start next year? Probably, but contractually, let's look at who the Pelicans have under payroll for next year. They've got Zion for a couple more years, McCollum for one more, DeJounte for a few. Bruce Brown is now off the books, who they acquired midway through. Herb Jones, they've got a couple more. Trey Murphy, they've got a half decade. Yves Missy, he's a young dude. They've still got him. Jose Alvarado, I believe he signed an extension midway through this year, if memory serves. Kelly Olynyk is under contract as well. So Bruce Brown is really the only one you're kind of pointing at and going, oh, there's a guy who played a little bit down the stretch that's not going to be a part of the future. The rest of the guys that logged significant minutes for the Pels this year are all there next season. Like literally every single one of them. I think Jordan Hawkins has a couple of team options that I'm sure the Pels will exercise because it doesn't cost him a whole lot. So if Zion's healthy to start the year, he'll be in there for big minutes. McCollum, same thing, who I'm sure they'll try to trade because he's on an expiring deal. DeJounte, once he comes back. Herb Jones, Kelly Olynyk, Trey Murphy, these are the guys that are going to see pretty big minutes. And then how they handle Yves Missy, I don't entirely know. But the thing is, we already saw what the Pelicans looked like without DeJounte Murray. And it was a crap ton of Trey Murphy, Zion, CJ McCollum. So you already know. Do I want to draft Zion? If I'm trying to win free throws, I do not. If I'm not trying to win free throws, well, he's a first rounder, basically, if you're punting foul shots. So you kind of have to. Even if he ends up playing half the year, if you can get a first rounder in the 5th round in your team build, you do it. If you're not punting free throws, you better start after you pick up Zion. No, I don't want him because the health risk is just too much on top of the free throw thing. Trey Murphy is the guy that projects to be the massive, massive, massive winner for the long stretch that DeJounte Murray is out. Where he goes, I don't know. But he was number 24 this season when healthy and getting 16 shots a game. He has a very fantasy-friendly game. He gets steals. He gets some blocks. He hits a ton of threes. His free throw percent is great. He doesn't sink your field goal despite taking a crap ton of three-pointers. There's a lot to love about Trey Murphy. I don't know where he's going to go, but I see no reason why he wouldn't be a top 50 guy this year. And then I think the values on this team, and I don't think that I want CJ McCollum because of the trade risk and the down percentages. I think Herb Jones is probably your value play. I don't know what to make of Kelly Olynyk. That he and Yves Missi are going to be splitting center minutes most likely, so I don't think I would touch either one of those dudes. But Herb, with 9.5 shots a game, assuming he can get that many with DeJounte out, he's a top 100 guy with upside if it gets to 10 or 10.5 shots per game. I don't know that it will. Or, let's say he shoots 45, 46% instead of 43 or 44. These are all ways that Herb ends up as a decent play. I think you're going to be looking at a lot of those defensive guys around pick 100 again, where Herb Jones and Alex Caruso and Jalen Suggs all went this past season, and all those guys ended up as flops. But Herb certainly seems like, Suggs, if you think he can make it through a year, he's got the best upside of the three because he's going to be relied upon to do something besides defense. But Herb feels like a relatively safe pick in that zone if he can remain upright this coming year. And again, while we've already seen this team without DeJounte Murray, there's more, and we saw him without Brandon Ingram and all that, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't feel like a whole lot is going to change from the middle part of this year to the beginning of next season. It just doesn't feel like it. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe something will change. Like I'm just not seeing it. Who's going to do more? Who's going to do less? It's the same. They're stuck in a run it back, basically. And finally, the last name we're going to talk about on today's program is Kyrie Irving, who prior to his ACL tear was actually having one of his healthier seasons, for whatever the hell that's worth, which, again, not very much. Went down on March 3rd, so there were about 5.5 weeks left in the regular season. Not that he was like playing in every ball game, but he didn't have that. I don't know. He was on his way to playing probably in the mid-60s, which is about what you can expect out of Kyrie most years. And, again, ACL tear in March means you're probably looking at like a January return date and then a very slow ramp up. So again, I know if you can survive November, December, and most of January, you're basically going to sit on Kyrie for 3 months before you get anything out of him. And you'll get good Kyrie for the last maybe 6 weeks of the regular season. Woof, 3/4 of the year. I don't think I would do it. Again, outside of the keeper stuff. But this one, we don't really know what the Mavs are going to look like without Kyrie and also healthy, because they weren't healthy at all. Kyrie went down, and then everybody else went down too. Anthony Davis was out for a long stretch. Daniel Gafford was out for a long stretch. Derek Lively was out for a while. PJ Washington was out for a while. The only guys that weren't were the guys that we didn't think were going to be much of a factor at the beginning of the year, and then were forced into being factors, like Najee Marshall. Spencer Dinwiddie had to do a bunch once he ended up back in Dallas. Max Christie had to play a lot once he got traded there. What do we think about Dallas and who's going to have to do stuff going into next year? They also are likely to add Cooper Flagg, lest we forget this team just won the lottery. Anthony Davis is under contract next year. Kyrie's got a player option, which obviously he'll exercise since he's dead for most of the year. Clay, PJ, Gafford, Caleb Martin, Najee Marshall, Max Christie, Derek Lively, team option. They'll keep that. Nobody relevant is coming off the books outside of Spencer Dinwiddie, who probably won't be back, but who the hell knows? Would I take Klay Thompson with no Kyrie Irving around? Probably not. Klay showed himself to be a less than one-trick pony this year. He had 3 threes a ball game, which I guess is good, but it's not that great compared to most NBAers these days. A lot of guys are hitting 2, 2.5. So getting an extra half to 1 3-pointer out of Klay, he's a good foul shooter, but he doesn't drive anymore, so that doesn't matter. Bad field goal percent because he has no lift anymore. I don't want anything to do with Klay Thompson. If I had to guess, and I'm assuming that Cooper Flagg is going to start out of the gates, but that might actually be inaccurate. It might be some point guard, we don't know who, Klay, PJ, AD, and Gafford. Or will they start Derek Lively and bring Gafford off the bench? That might be the way that they look at it. So what does that mean? Does that put Flagg? Is he this? Do they start him at guard? Mavs don't have a point guard, really. Do they just roll without one? Brandon Williams, starting point guard? Don't think so. Dante Exum? His actually contract is coming off the books. I really don't know. I really don't know who the hell the Mavs are going to start. Obviously Anthony Davis is going to be a first-round pick, especially if you think he can stay healthy. He's going to be asked to do a lot. I don't think I would draft either center, Gafford or Lively, on the Mavs. Gafford would be the one I would look at because he can get it done in 19 minutes. Lively needs more like 27, 28 to have fantasy value. If you're punting free throws, you could go Lively. That would be the play there. PJ Washington, I expect, is going to play a lot of minutes. He'll probably hover around the edge of the top 100 because of bad percentages. Obviously, if you're punting either of those, he gets a little bit of a bump. And then beyond that, I don't think that I would even entertain Mavs. We'll see what they do. We'll see where Cooper Flagg goes in drafts. He's going to get to do stuff, especially while Kyrie is out, because they're going to need somebody who can go do some things. But he's probably going to get overdrafted. Pretty much every rookie does. But again, these are decisions you can't really make right now until you see where a guy is going. You can try to figure out what's going to translate. And, Flagg shot 48% from the field in college, 39 from 3, 84 free throw. He had good steals and blocks numbers. Will that translate to the NBA? It's hard to know. He's a tall dude, 6'9". Rebounds, okay. He does a lot of everything pretty efficiently. It profiles as a good fantasy player, but is it going to be good from the start? Probably not. The Mavs badly need a point guard because I think then Cooper Flagg would be more interesting if he doesn't have to be the ball handler right out of the chute. He might have to be a ball handler a bit. Let's see where he's going. I would certainly take him inside the top 100 just for fun, but he's going to go earlier than that. So, yeah, I think we'll worry about that another time. And those are the names I wanted to talk about on today's program. So that's that. Big injuries going into next year and who it helps. The easiest one to predict was the team we started with. The Boston Celtics target some of the guys who don't score quite as much, who are going to get small but noticeable bumps in their usage, and that will rocket them forward because they're high-efficiency guys who are only held back by the fact that they didn't get to do that much sometimes. I am Dan Vespers for Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. Thanks so much for watching. Like, rate, and subscribe on your way out. We'll see you guys again tomorrow. Adios.